This is Jets FM on the OFN as the Jets lose another one, week 2 to San Francisco. Does the score really matter? No. All right. Look, last week on the show, we were pretty upset, like most Jet fans were, and there was a lot of ranting and raving and all that other stuff. And I don't have the energy for that this week. A lot of it has to do with the fact that I look, I'm a realist, and I've always been a realist. And at this point in time, the Jets just don't have the players, and I think overall, I still believe that there are things that we'll talk about in a little while that were positive to come out of this game. And one of the things that I try to do that I think is real important is perspective. If I was just a typical Jet fan, that every time and of course I'm upset that the team loses, and so much so that I'll be honest with you, if I didn't have a show, I would probably not watch half of these games when it looks like the game is getting out of hand. Like if it's a more than 2-score lead, I would. All right, you know what? I'm not even. I'm flipping the channel, I'm watching another game. If they come back, then I'll watch it. If not, I'm just I don't care. That's actually how passionate I am about the team. I've been through the losing. I'm not 10 or 15 years older, where at least I did see a Super Bowl championship. So I don't have any. I've had mostly disappointments, not all losing. This just happens to be like one of the toughest stretches I think I've ever experienced as a Jet fan, and I think statistically it speaks that way. This is a tough stretch. I don't think we've ever been through a stretch like this. The Rich Kotite era was the other really bad stretch, and it was worse than this. See, at least I still feel very confident in the foundation. And I don't care what Joe Benigno says, criticizing the ownership this past week on Boomer and Gio, which I thought was comical. So he's going to criticize he's going to criticize Christopher Johnson, and you could say what you want. And he admitted his mistake about hiring Joe Douglas, or hiring a GM later than he should have. But the fact is, he corrected the mistake, and he went out there and he hired, in my opinion, the GM that's going to turn the franchise around. And in 3 or 4 years, if the Jets are still losing and Douglas is just another in the line of failed GMs, then I don't know what I'm talking about. And I give up, and I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. No more Jet shows, and I'm just going to be a fan. And I'm telling you the truth. I've said it before. I felt this way about my basketball team, the Nets, when they hired Sean Marks. And I feel this way, and it's not that they have won a championship yet, but the turnaround and the envy and how the praise of Marks, of what he's done to turn the Nets around, in my opinion, is what's going to happen to Joe Douglas in a couple of years. It's going to be a slower, I don't know, maybe not a slower process, but maybe, because you just can't bring in, after a couple of years, a couple of players and you're fixed, or you're almost fixed, which is what he's done. Or at least you would hope he's done if you're a Net fan with Durant and Irving. It's a little easier to do it that way in the NBA. In the NFL, there's more to that. But I still think that's what it's going to take. And I know the fans are looking at this as a 40-year run. And I don't. Sorry, I just don't. To me, it is we're right now on a 1-year run. That's it. And I'm sorry if you're upset about what you're upset about, and I know what you're upset about. You're upset about the losing, and you're upset about same old Jets and all of that. But I just think it's silly to feel that way. It's why I don't. And I know it's tough to live in New York and to be a Jet fan more than it is to not, which I don't. and I know it's easier. Um, I also know it's easier to not be in a working environment with fellow Jet fans that you got to go to work with every day. I get it. If and if what you do is you're a avid FAN listener in New York, and if you are, then you're listening to 95% negativity on the Jets. So I understand where the typical Jet fan from that area is coming from. I understand it all. I just don't think it's the way to go about doing it. And I don't blame certain Jet fans that are upset. Okay, I will. And by the way, Joe Biggino at the end of that interview with Boomer and Gio said something that I wish he would either say more or would lead with. I hope I'm wrong. And I think if Benigno would talk more about that, then I think there's a little bit more of the, okay, now I'm kind of getting what a Jet fan is. That's more like it. You ain't gonna hear Mike Greenberg saying it. Mike Greenberg's a phony. He's a big phony. Okay, he's a bandwagon phony fan. He's doing it because he thinks and I could say the same thing about any of the guys that hold the same position Greenberg has. They do it because they think it's kind of cool in a way. Hey, I'm an angered Jet fan. I'm gonna trash my team every chance I get, and that's funny, isn't it? It's funny that I'm depressed of being a Jet fan. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Don't want to hear it. Okay, just don't. And if this would be if Mike Maccagnan was still the GM and Gase was here, and you would have criticism regarding, and let's say you had Woody and Maccagnan and Gase, and you wanted to trash everything and this is wrong or whatever, I would be even more, you know what? Hey, I think you're right. And I understand why you're feeling the way you're feeling. But in my opinion, because I don't have the negative feeling or reaction to, or had the negative reaction to the hiring of Gase the way a lot of fans did, and because I have a lot of faith in Joe Douglas, I feel that Chris Johnson has done a fantastic job. Everybody makes mistakes when you're doing something for the first time. Christopher's mistake was not firing Maccagnan when he should have. But he didn't exasperate that mistake by letting him run the team or remain the GM the entire season, allowing other teams to give Joe Douglas an opportunity to say, hey, no, don't go there. Come here. And then maybe Joe Douglas isn't here. And maybe we have ourselves a general manager that I believe would be a lot worse. So he makes a mistake. He corrects the mistake by grabbing Douglas, one of the top hot GM candidates, the next guy that everybody in the league feels could be the next really good GM, makes the great hire. And yes, makes it with the recommendation of Adam Gase. Sorry. And you see, I think that's part of the problem. There's no question that the Benignos and the fans that feel the same way, who are upset about the whole thing. Well, I have to not like Chris Johnson because Christopher Johnson hired Gase. And I have to not like Christopher Johnson, because I don't know, because or I'm not really sure about Joe Douglas because he was a hire of Chris Johnson, who hired Gase and didn't fire Maccagnan when he should have. So they're all bad. Because you can't see if you're wrong, then in a lot of circumstances, fans would rather see their team suffer than be wrong. That's why to hear Joe say, I hope I'm wrong, is a very positive step for certain people, certain for a general population of fans. But there are a lot of Jet fans out there that don't feel that way. And I don't know what to tell you about those fans, because again, I just don't think those are really true fans. I just don't. I think some are. The ones that are just, I just think it's one of those things where I think those guys aren't like diehard sports fans in a way. Like they're like, or more maybe educated to the point where they, it means so much to them. They love football. They love this about sports. They love that. Everything's about sports. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong, because a lot of people have lives. A lot of people, they have their jobs. They have their families. There's just so many things. And maybe, you know what? I have a couple hours on a Sunday. I just want to watch my football team. And I'm sick of that fact that the few hours of the week that I have to watch my football team, I got to watch them and they stink. Those fans that are angry and Gase stinks and Christopher Johnson stinks and the organization stinks and I'm sick of the whole organization. Those fans, that's just the way they're going to be. And I don't think, and nobody's going to change their mind about anything until they start winning. But I think it's important, whether you're going to do it or not, I think it's important to try and understand and try to find, at this stage of their rebuild, the silver linings, because that's what they do. That's what the organization does when they take a look at what's going on behind closed doors at the film, and the GM talks to the coach, and this is what the coach and the owner and the GM are talking about during the week. These are the little things. Okay, so for instance, let's go with the flow of the game, so you understand here. You just look at the game, or you just watch the game and you didn't really remember little stuff. It's very easy to just be like, this is the end of the world. All right, but it's not. Okay, so Mostert's touchdown run. Did you notice the two linebackers who, from my point of view, were to blame? They're both linebackers that will not be here when this team is a playoff team. And that's Leighton Hewitt and Avery Williamson. Neither guy will be on this. Now, Hewitt may be a backup and a special teams guy. But Hewitt, I mean, I don't know what his stats were this week, but last week, where are they? Last week, he was in on 100% of the defensive snaps. 100%. I mean, I'm not even kidding. I don't even understand how Burgess was let go and Hewitt remained. That I don't understand. That I have to just leave it up to, they know what they're doing. There's something about Hewitt that he does better than Burgess. Now, special teams is definitely one of them, and maybe that's it. But why are you playing 100% of the snaps on defense then? I don't get it. He's not a good football player. He's just not. I don't care what they say. I just don't, because they're wrong. And there's a lot of things about behind the scenes. You don't know what you're talking about. But how often do we know, watching enough of players, that coaches can be blind to the fact that certain players just shouldn't be starting? Certain players you shouldn't even have on the team. But hey, you know what? That doesn't mean that they're not smart. It doesn't mean that they don't know more football than you as a fan. There's just something about it that just doesn't click. And this isn't, Hewitt can't be starting. I mean, you want to know why the defense can't stop anybody. I mean, there you go. Hewitt is, make sure I have everything here. Hewitt is a big part of this team. And by the way, did I say Leighton? Who is Leighton Hewitt? That's the tennis player, Neville Hewitt. That just shows you how much I care about his first name, or even care about the player, because the player's terrible. Throw in the fact that obviously this team next year will get 2 first-round draft picks because Douglas didn't overspend on free agents that he didn't feel fit the team. He's going to have more money to spend next year in the offseason and get more players. And Mosley comes in. That's his free agent because he's played one game for us. So he will be our free agent prize again next year, but for real this time if he plays. Just, you got to keep these things in mind. Okay? I mean, and yes, making sure that the team is successful, or at least showing something. And I'm not saying, hey, by the end of the season, they win 6 of the last 8 and go 7-9 again. I'm just saying, as we said in the very beginning of the season, the Sam Darnold. That is the most important aspect of this team this season, is his development. We'll get to him in just a little while. But just starting off with Leighton, his name is actually Neville Hewitt. 100% of the snaps last week. Avery Williamson. Now, Avery Williamson, who is a run-stopping linebacker, coming back from injury. I don't want to hear an excuse that he's still not 100%, because if that's the case, he shouldn't be playing. But did you see Williamson, the complete and utter lack of speed to get to Mostert? I know Mostert's fast, but it was like he was running. It was in cement. It was terrible. So Williamson couldn't get to Mostert fast enough to at least force him towards the sideline more. So, all right, maybe he gets a 15-yard gain, but not an 80. And then you get Hewitt, who gets completely blocked out of the play. It's just, but that's what you have to understand. Next year, when the team is more of, this is what you hope, this is what you're counting on from Joe Douglas. This is why it's important Sam Darnold takes this next step this year for next year. And that can still happen. But for us to look ahead at that, Mosley will be playing that position and will be making that play, not Williamson and Hewitt. All right, now, Jets get their first crack at it, and right away, 2nd and 5 after a nice gain by Gore, Darnold, with no pressure, throws on his back foot again and incomplete. It's like he was without pressure. He was thinking the pressure was going to be there, so he threw on his back foot, and the pass was incomplete. And you just but that was one of the bad plays. He had a couple others, but for the most part, he actually did play better. Hogan dropped the first down pass on a 2nd down also. And this is the way the game is going all of a sudden. And Gore, on a 3rd and 3, you could notice that there was blocking. There was one guy to beat over here with a blocker, and there was a lot of traffic over on this side. Gore had a chance to cut it that way. And he had the block, and it could have been a nice big gain. And he decided, I'm going to go the shortest way, old school, the shortest way, try to see if I can get those 3 yards. And he got like a yard or nothing. And this is the beginning of the running back problem the Jets have with Gore. And I said this at the beginning of the season. It's going to be a long year if Frank Gore has a lot of carries. Long year. He can be the greatest teammate in the world, and he can be useful in that department. There ain't no doubt about that. But what you have to do, what the coaching staff must do, is they can't feel like they're obligated to give him the ball because he's such a great teammate. That is going to do that is not going to do Sam Darnold any good. It's not going to do this offense any good or the team. You cannot play favorites that way. And Gore, look, the offensive line, in my opinion, was the lone bright spot of the game. I think they gave Gore big enough holes that if that is a fresh, whether it's a Pirine or just a regular average to above average NFL young running back, you're getting 15, 20 yards 3 or 4 times, maybe even longer. You're getting, forget if that's Mostert. That's how well I thought the offensive line did early in the game. Now, the offensive line had more issues later in the game because they were getting destroyed and they just came after Darnold. They didn't have to worry about the running game. I'm not going to blame the offensive line for not being able to protect Darnold later in the game. Early in the game, when it mattered the most for the first half, early third quarter, I thought the offensive line did an excellent job in this game. And that there's a lot of hope. There's no over-the-hill guys there. And they're just going to get better working together. And when you see Gore get those 5 yards and you see him get those 10 yards, I'm telling you, if that is a younger running back, those are bigger gains. And I why he's getting touches in the fourth quarter. I mean, I don't understand. Or they're getting blown out and Frank Gore's in the game. I don't know what that's about. Quinnen Williams. San Francisco gets the ball back. Quinnen Williams sacks Jimmy G. That's when Jimmy G got hurt. And Quinnen Williams did. There's another positive thing this week. Quinnen Williams, who we said last week, you better step up. He stepped up. That might have been the best game Quinnen Williams has ever had as a pro. 2 sacks, great performance by Quinnen Williams. You take a look then at the next drive for the Jets. Darnold actually threw a nice 3rd down and short. He threw that nice out pass to Perryman. Nice catch by Perryman. Picks up the 1st down. Hey, something positive, right? Then you had a nice catch by Berrios. Low throw on 1st down. And I thought it was also the best job by Darnold this season. It was on a 3rd down, the one when he looked at the first guy, and then the pressure came, and he didn't go, what am I going to do as my second guy? He just took off. What we said last week he needed to do more of. And he even broke a tackle, picked up a big 1st down at that point. Oh, and by the way, another thing, I can't stand the crowd noise, the fake crowd noise. I can't take it. I just this has to stop. It's already bad enough that I'm still seeing guys on the sidelines with the masks, and then Troy Vincent's criticizing them when they don't. You know what's interesting is they didn't take the masks off, or they took up their masks off. A lot of them took their masks off last week. Vincent criticizes them for it. And there weren't any bad tests. What are you criticizing them for? There's no bad tests. There's not going to be. You're hanging out with the same people. These are your guys. The league has done such a phenomenal job in keeping everybody healthy and not catching this flu that's going around. That is nowhere near an issue than it was a few months back. And it's bad enough I got to still deal with that optic. But the crowd noise thing, I'm just, because they don't know what they're doing. I don't want to hear the crowd noise. I want to, if there's no one there, then there's no one there. That's just the way it's going to be. Because whoever is in charge of it, they don't know what they're doing. It's like you'll see a play go, it's a negative play. We said this last week at the Bill game. The Jets made a positive play, and the people in Buffalo had the crowd cheer. And the reason why it's annoying is because they're doing it at times that don't make any sense. And so you're thinking, oh, wait a second, does that mean there's a penalty? Oh, does that mean something good happened? They're screwing up the timing of it, and it has to go away. It just has to go away. It's just I got enough problems watching my own team stink. Then I got to hear this stupid, ridiculous crowd noise that's making me think that something good or bad is happening when the opposite's going on. Okay, so just get a field goal and it's 7-3. It's still a game. Mostert scores another touchdown that they call back. And interesting, because do you know who he got by first? Williamson. Once again. And Hewitt got held. But, so we don't know what would have happened. I'm going to give Hewitt a break there because he got held. But boy, that was close. Or else it would have been the same two. The same. But it was the same two at Williamson. And by the way, nice whiff by Poole. Because at least if Poole makes the tackle. But that was like a Deion Sanders tackle by Poole. Then Perryman gets hurt. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know. Perryman gets hurt. Of course he does. And this is another reason why you got to just relax. Because they're just... See, this is when... Yeah, but that's why Douglas should have re-signed Anderson. And he should have drafted another receiver. And he should have did this and he should have did that. Look, man, either you're in with this guy or you're not. And I get why a lot of Jet fans are still not sure. But I'm telling you right now, I'm all in. And I didn't see a situation yet. Okay? Because that I think that, oh, you know what? Because sure, it would have been nice. I would have liked it if he would have drafted another receiver. But he goes out and he gets the safety. Now, let's hope that's a good pick. We'll see. I don't think we're going to know this year. Maybe we will by the end of the year. Next year, probably the earliest. But you just got to, that's why you can't, it's not about, hey, where's that other receiver that could have drafted? You're going to have to figure these things out in time. It is just not going to be something that we can figure out now. Okay. So, and you know, the Robbie Anderson thing too, and this is important also to understand from my point of view and from Joe Douglas's point of view with Anderson not signing him. Everybody, a lot of Jet fans want to talk about, well, Joe Douglas is only going to bring in guys that are great character and want to be here, all that kind of stuff. So keep talking about why Robbie Anderson is not here, but you have your answer. He from day one, Robbie Anderson, maybe day two, Robbie Anderson has always been. Remember, just a year and a half ago, Robbie Anderson was this close from being kicked off the team, this close, because of all the crap that was going on with him. This close from being kicked off the team. So that's the kind of guy he was. Now, when did he clean himself up? His contract year. That's when all of a sudden he was a good boy. Does that mean he's going to continue to be a good boy? Maybe. Did he have his best year as a receiver second half of last season? Absolutely. But again, Robbie Anderson decided, I wanted to go play for my former college coach. If Matt Rule isn't in Carolina, I think Robbie Anderson signs with the Jets for the amount that Joe Douglas wants to sign him for. But he wanted to go play for his college coach, and you're going to blame him? I'm not going to blame him. And if Joe Douglas didn't want to pay him an extra $1 or $2 because he didn't think Robbie Anderson was worth it, based on Robbie Anderson's history, I'm okay with that because he knows a lot more about what's going on behind the scenes with Robbie Anderson than we do. So I'm okay with that. And I know it affects the Jets now in game 1 and game 2. And see if Robbie Anderson was here. It's not about game 1 or game 2 of 2020. Okay, it's not. Joe Douglas has not been here for 3 or 4 years, and he needs to make a move now. He just got here. He's got a 6-year contract, which is about him, which is the reason why he wanted that long contract, because he wants to be able to do it his way, which is the long way. He's not going to sign players just because he needs to fit, like Maccagnan did. Remember that year vividly if you were listening to this show at the time when I warned everybody that they were doing it wrong, when they should have started the rebuild the year that they went all the way to the Bills game and had a chance for the playoffs. I was the one every week that kept saying this. Okay, it's nice they're winning, but this is a complete waste of time. You got Fitzpatrick, you got all these old guys. This ain't gonna work, and it did not work, and they never really got back to even though they got like a 1-year restart, wasn't enough. And Douglas is not going to do that. He's not going to sign these old guys or even guys. Now, maybe there's a combination, and I don't know. I'm not going to tell you that certain players that weren't signed over the last month or two, free agents, weren't just signed because of their character issues. I think if anything, it's just about, hey, I'm not going to be, especially with contracts today in the NFL, most players, even if you sign them to 4 years and they're 27 or 28 years old, most guys are it's like a 2-year deal. It's like, okay, within a couple of years, usually the money is gone, the guaranteed money. And now the player's already thinking about a new contract or, hey, am I going to go somewhere else? What's going on here? Joe Douglas, you can understand that unless he sees a guy that he really believes is this is a guy that I have to have on this team to be a major part of this team for the next 6 or 7 years, he hasn't found that guy yet because he hasn't signed him. So I'm perfectly fine with how he's handled that situation. And I know a lot of other fans aren't, but again, that's what happens when you start off the season 0-2. But again, the Robbie Anderson deal, I don't want to, that's just, you have to understand, okay? It wasn't just Joe Douglas. It wasn't like Joe Douglas didn't want him. He gave him a decent offer. The guy didn't want to be here. Sorry, you say what you want, but you don't do that as a GM. You don't overpay players who don't want to be there. Remember when Maccagnan tried to sign the dude from Minnesota last year, Barr, paid him a lot of money, but he didn't want to be there. What would have happened if he would have came here? That would have been a disaster. Because they would have overpaid a guy who, by the way, that was overpaying. That guy's not that good. The amount of money that they threw at him. I much rather did have Mosley. I'm glad that money went to Mosley. And I know what's going on with Mosley, but Mosley is a much better player than Barr. And I know they're different positions, but I just think he's a much better player and leader. So I think it went well there. But just imagine if Barr would have been here. Those are the types of players that he's never going to bring in here. So whether it's at $2 million or $8 million or $15 million, the fact is that that's just not going to happen here. I also thought the Jets did a better job, for the most part, letting Sam throw a lot of quick, short passes. But what's going to happen here, and this is again part of the injury situation, is you're going to have to start throwing the ball downfield. And does anybody recall over the first 2 games of the season, Sam Darnold throwing the ball down the field? Because he had time to throw the football a few times last week, definitely more this week. Now, one of the reasons is, and it's a big reason, those guys are not here. Those guys are banged up and hurt. Okay, the guys that are going to try to stretch the defense for this team are not around. So the defense is good. That's why you'll see a lot of times when Sam does want to throw the ball short on these 3rd and short plays, the guys are getting tackled pretty quick because the defense pretty much knows, well, he's going to have to throw the ball short. We don't care. He ain't going to beat us deep. It makes it that much more difficult for Darnold. They don't have the personnel right now. They're injured. Some of it's injury, and some of it is just, hey, they just don't have those guys here right now. But anyway, Perryman gets hurt, and that doesn't make it any easier. And then you get Gore getting stopped on 4th and 1, which is just, see, this is what it is. He gets stopped on 3rd. He gets stopped on 4th. I mean, this is Gore, okay? I mean, 21, what is it, 21 carries for Frank Gore? Why is P. Ryan in the game if he's not able to run the ball? If you don't trust him, what's he in there for? And then you got Anderson roughing the passer on 3rd down. And I've said this before too. And this is a Greg Williams thing. Greg, if you're not going to run a 4-3, which was your staple, if you're not going to run a 4-3, then why'd you bring back Anderson? Anderson is a strict 4-3 guy. He excelled when the Jets ran a 4-3 a couple years ago. He was booted out of Indianapolis because he couldn't run anything else but a 4-3 defense. And you still have him in here in this. He's not an effective player unless you're going to run a 4-3. It's best for Anderson to leave the Jets. Maybe they could trade him at the deadline, go somewhere that runs a pure 4-3, and a team will find him a valuable, kind of rotation player. He's never going to make it here unless they run a 4-3. And for whatever freaking reason, Greg Williams does not want to run more 4-3 than 3-4, even though he doesn't have linebackers. I don't understand it. I don't get it. The talent level on this defense in the front 7 is on the defensive line. I don't understand it. Now, maybe if Zuniga was healthy, that would help out a little bit more. I'm just not getting it. I don't get last week. What is it? Harvey Lange was in for 95% of the plays last week. Harvey Lange. And he would 100%. And you wonder why the Jets defense stinks. So, also, you had the 3rd and 31 run, which again is Greg Williams' fault. We talk about this a lot when a team is 3rd and 31 and you see the defense play pressure on the receivers and they allow someone to get over them in a pass. Same thing. He had 9 guys within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage on 3rd and 31. So if a running back does make a cut up, a cutback play, there will be openings. But if you have guys played back 10 or 15 yards, just like normal defensive coordinators do when it's 3rd and 31, the guy can't do that. If he gets 15, 20 yards, that's okay. You're not getting 31 on us. Nice job, Greg Williams. Good call. Really nice. Really great. Hogan had a really nice catch in the second half, and then he got hurt. Yeah, he got hurt. And Herndon dropped the ball in the end zone for a touchdown, which ended the game, really. And he's a big disappointment. I don't know what else to say about Herndon, but not only is Darnold off to a bad start, but Herndon is, he's the guy that was supposed to really help us out. And if he's not going to help us out, then you might as well just play Griffin. What happened to Herndon? Where was the guy that was the exciting guy? Where is he? The ball was right in his hands. He dropped it in the end zone. Basham had good pressure that led to the interception. We've talked highly about Basham. He's really the only outside rusher. And I think he's a better outside rusher than Jenkins, by the way. Berrios tripped and fell. He could have had a first down, but he scored a touchdown later in the game. I'm going to close out by I'm just going to close out quickly like this. Look at this. All right. You get the big touchdown run. All right. By San Francisco to start the game. You got 2 guys in there that were a big part of that for the Jets, Hewitt and Williamson, who will not be a part of this defense when they're a successful football team. Okay. Then you have, because that's one big play there for San Francisco. Okay. Then You had the let's see, the Jets got the field goal to cut it to 7-3. I'm just trying to see here exactly where the big then Anderson's roughing penalty. That should have been 3 points. Instead, it's 7 because they scored a touchdown after that. The Jets got stopped on 4th and 1. Who was running the ball? Frank Gore. Should Frank Gore even be there? No. Why is he there? Because Le'Veon Bell's injured and P. Ryan is still kind of injured, I guess, and he's not up to speed. So because we have to rush Frank Gore, we get stopped on 4th and 1. Okay. We give up the big gainer because we have 2 guys in there that won't be a part of this organization moving forward. Anderson, who will not be a part of this organization moving forward because we're not going to play 4-3, so he won't be here much longer. Roughing the passer, that leads from just 3 points to 7 points. And then you have the 3rd and 31, which is a bonehead play by Greg Williams, called by Greg Williams, that leads to another field goal. And then Herndon drops the touchdown in his hands. The point I'm trying to make here is between the talent level that isn't where it's going to be when you give Joe Douglas time, okay, whether it's that, players like that not making plays, or they're too old, whatever the case may be, or players that should be making those plays like Herndon and then aren't, and other stupid things, 3rd and 31, whatever. The fact is unlike the Buffalo game, even though I still think there was a bad job by Greg Williams in that one, as we talked about, not shadowing Josh Allen, because all of that was Josh Allen. Matter of fact, someone wrote in one of the papers about how criticizing Greg Williams for being optimistic about that game. And I get a little bit of what they were saying, but then they were critiquing him because of how but look at, they couldn't cover the receivers. So what are you talking about? It's like, well, they couldn't cover the receivers because Josh Allen was running the freak all over the place. Most quarterbacks like Jimmy Garoppolo aren't going to run all over the place. And then you break out and guys are all of a sudden running different. They're all over the place. They're not just a quarterback, the receivers. It's hard to cover like that. Okay, that's why quarterbacks like Josh Allen can break down defenses. That's what makes them really good football players. And Greg Williams did a lousy job of containing Josh Allen. So it wasn't like they just sat back and the cornerbacks allowed the receivers to catch passes all over them. Most of it was because Josh Allen was running around, creating plays, breaking up plays. I'm not saying there was all of it, but there was a lot of it. That's why Greg Williams looked at the film and understood that. It's not, but this week, it was about if you make these plays, which are makeable, and you don't do the negatives here, and you turn the negative 5 plays into positive 5 plays, believe it or not, 31-13 is a football game in the 4th quarter. So it's not as bad as it appears. And that is how they're going to break this game down themselves behind closed doors. And that's why I just had to point that out by also just letting you understand once 100 times, I get why everybody's upset. But you want to be there when it's turned around. You want to be the fan that was still upset. Hey, I'm really, like me, I can't stand this. I can't stand this losing anymore. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't be trashing certain guys that you're going to regret trashing, is all I'm saying. You better be sure yourself, because if you're not, then, you're going to regret it. But like Joe Benigno said, he hopes he's wrong. And I guess there's a lot of you guys that would feel the same way. I just feel that when it comes down to it, in 2 or 3 years, and look, the quarterback has a lot to do with it, which is why I've said it, and I still believe it. It's all about Sam Darnold. But I believe Joe Douglas is going to be the guy that's going to be here for a long time, and he's going to bring a winning culture here, but it takes time. And you just have to understand the little things here and the little things there that could change like this and go from a bad week to a good week. I think we had one of those weeks. We'll see how it goes next week. Sam Darnold has got to take that next step again. We got to see if, man, remember Crowder wasn't even in the game. Perryman gets hurt. Hogan gets, I mean, come on. We're playing with Josh Malone out there. Vincent Smith isn't even on the field. So come on. And then Herndon can't even make catches anymore. Anyway, next week, I hope Michael Pirine gets the ball more. I don't want to see Frank Gore getting 20 carries anymore. It's going to make me sick. I just don't want to see it. It's annoying. But we just got to see if Sam Darnold could take some steps here. And that's all you can do. And believe it or not, we took steps this week. So it didn't happen all at once. It's not a home game or a road game because there's no fans in any of these games, but we'll be in Indianapolis next week. So we'll talk next week. And Jan, I don't know if Jan couldn't be with me this week because of the holiday situation, the Jewish holiday. I forget what the deal is for next week. I know he's going to be with me for sure moving on. Next week's the late game, so we'll be with you later in the night on Sunday night. That's it. We'll see you again next Sunday here on Jets FM on EOFN, and stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, thumbs up. That always helps as well. And we'll talk to you next week, and hopefully it's a lot better than this week. I guess it can't be any worse.